Thank you very much. Mr. Sims, you may now proceed.
Chairman Molnar, Ranking Member Khanna, and distinguished members of the Select Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Like Aaron, but from a very different vantage, I've observed the scam compound phenomenon since well before it came to public light. And watching the world gradually and then suddenly awaken to the crisis has been quite encouraging. But much of that attention has been and remains focused on the compounds themselves. And that's understandable. What Aaron has described here is nothing short of brutal. These compounds are destroying the lives of scam victims from America and all over the world, and they are trapping trafficking victims in horrific cycles of forced criminality. But the scam compound is only the visible front end. The deeper threat is the political architecture that protects it. And that's why I'm particularly encouraged by the committee report framing that rightly resists the simplistic explanation here. This isn't a single command and control style conspiracy run by Beijing, but it's also not ordinary organized crime. Rather, you describe a highly complex system, a regional and global network with many nodes. And my work focuses on one part of that system that remains severely under-examined today. And that is what happens when transnational criminal networks not only enter a host country, but become embedded intractably in the political economic fabric of that country. Cambodia is the most mature case of that phenomenon today. And Cambodia cannot be understood merely as a cybercrime hub, a trafficking destination, or a problematic partner state in the region. And it is certainly all of those things, but more precisely, Cambodia is an advanced case of what criminal authoritarianism looks like in the digital era. This is a system in which illicit markets have become bound up with the incentives, the survival strategies, and the external alignments of the political order that exists there. And in my written testimony, I describe this as scam state architecture, and it has three basic layers. The first, at the top, are the external capital and capacity actors. These are the foreign criminals, the gray market actors that are predominantly from the People's Republic of China, who bring the money and the operating model. Second is the territorial protection layer. These are the compound owners that Aaron described, the local oligarchs who are bringing land and guards and impunity. But at the deepest level, you have your elite facilitators. These are the local actors who are giving access and regulatory insulation and connecting the whole system back to the state institutions at the very highest levels. These are people like Hun To, who is the cousin of Prime Minister Hun Manet, and also simultaneously a board member and a documented 30% shareholder in a firm that the Treasury Department has called a primary money laundering concern of the US government, and which is also widely described now as the largest illicit marketplace in history. And while numerous of Hun To's Chinese business partners are now facing accountability, he has never been sanctioned, never been indicted, and is free to visit or invest in the United States today. And in light of all of this, it is important to remember that modern Cambodia was not formed in a vacuum. PRC tolerance and selective enforcement have played a major role in the descent. But democratic governments have also all too often accommodated, underweighted, or looked past criminal autocracy in Cambodia in pursuit of other goals. And fully recognizing that this is the China Select Committee and not the Cambodia Select Committee, if your goal is to counter Beijing's influence, the democratic world has one real comparative advantage. And that is the promise of a different political future that is rooted in rule of law, accountability, human rights, and civic freedom. And in Cambodia, that advantage has been allowed to erode almost to the point of extinction. And we are now seeing and reaping the consequences of what grows in the space left behind. And admittedly, that is quite bleak testimony, but this is also not hopeless. State behavior, even in a profoundly compromised place like Cambodia, is more than a series of calculable conditions. It can be altered, to quote one American thinker, by acts of cowardice or bravery, by wise leaders or cruel ones, and above all, by good ideas and bad ones. And in Cambodia, much of the bravery, the wisdom, and the clarity has come from people working against the tide. These are the local journalists, the local civil society leaders, people embedded in the local fabric of this broken and failed state. And if we want to counter scam states, and other forms of criminal autocracy and malign influence around the region, we need to stand with these actors, not merely rhetorically or episodically, but strategically. And that means three things as I close. First, we should apply pressure at the heart of the problem. Not just the foreign actors, not just the compound oligarchs, but the system-level facilitators, and in severe cases, to the system itself. Second, we need to treat those frontline democratic actors, the local investigative capacity, not as nice-to-haves, but as core accountability and national security infrastructure. And third, we need to build an allied strategy that prevents this model from simply relocating and scaling elsewhere. Because I've spoken about Cambodia, but Cambodia is a warning. With state backing, cyber-enabled crime is lucrative, fungible, and scalable, perhaps without any criminal historic precedent. And if we fail to address the underlying architecture, we will keep chasing compounds while the system continues to export harms with ever greater severity upon Americans and people across the rest of the world. Thank you.